Hello and welcome. I'm Psychic Medium Roberto, and I hope you're doing well today. Alright, so today's case I'm looking at Michael Vaughan, the disappearance of Michael Vaughan, and he was 5 years old at the time of his disappearance. And I think the main focus of this reading is to identify the person involved as well as where that person can be located. And if you'd like to engage with the channel, I'd love to hear your comments. Please hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications icon. All right, so let's look at the stats here first, and that is Michael Joseph Vaughan, age 5 at the time of his disappearance. Michael was last seen in Fruitland, Idaho on July 27, 2021. All right, so who is Michael Joseph Vaughan? Let's have a look at him first. Now, he was born on the June 24th in 2016. Now, looking at his numbers and his name and his date of birth, this was a very engaged child. In other words, very engaged with his family, his parents, the people around him. He was very active, I would say. You know, him walking around definitely shows that he's that sociable type. Come guys, let's go play. He is a bit of a spark, and that we see in the 6. People with the number 6 in their dates of birth do have that spark ability. They get people G'd up. Come guys, let's all go play, and they'll all follow him. And yeah, I would say he was very, he did have the individual element, but he was more so about family first, like very connected with his family as well as the community. So we see that in the June 24, which is a 12-3, and very community orientated. I would say he has a bit of a design flair. He would be particular about what he wears, how he wears it. Yeah, almost reminds me of my younger brother. Very particular, but also liked to look good. Even though he was that young, I bet he would have insisted on a particular shirt to wear, and it had to be neat and tidy. All right, so, and when I look at his date of birth, the 24th of June, now, and when I look at his parents, his mom and his dad, and with Vaughan's numbers. Now, if you had to, just for a moment, think of the parents as a piece of a puzzle each, and they would fit together as a parent, a union, and Michael would be that missing piece between the two of them. He would complete them both, and he would create that union of parents and child. He was like that piece of puzzle that made everything fit together, and that's what I'm seeing in his name and his date of birth. So the unfortunate disappearance of him would have completely devastated his parents, like normal parents. But in this case, you know, in past cases, we've seen that parents put on the front that they all this happy married couple, but meanwhile, behind closed doors, there's turmoil and trouble. But this is not the case with this family. Vaughan was like the piece that bound the team together, or bound the parents together. It was the union, completion of a union. And I know they have at least another daughter as well, but I would say Vaughan was the piece that connected this couple together, and perfectly. So the loss of their child, like any parent, would be devastating, but for them it would have been to the power of 10, because this was a piece of the puzzle that was taken and ripped away from them, which then would create a bit of a, you know, the house of cards comes down, the puzzle breaks down. So this couple would have gone through some serious inner turmoil. And I would just say to them, you guys are very good as a couple as it is. You are very bound together, connected 100%. And of course, they do have a daughter. But the loss of a child is the most devastating thing that can ever happen to a good pair of parents. And unfortunately, this is the case with Michael and his parents, being Brandy and Tyler. Yeah, these cases are not easy, and unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be a good outcome here. And I would say that the best outcome is obviously finding the person responsible who perpetrated this horrendous crime. When I started looking at this case about a week ago, and today being the November the 25th at the time of this recording, I received a message immediately when I started looking at this. And the first message was, they are looking in the wrong house. Okay, so now if I go to my map of the area, and this is a geographical map of the area. Now at the top there's the woman that was arrested or taken into custody, where they dug up her home. And when we look at where Michael lives, now unfortunately I don't have the exact address, which would have helped you, but I would rely on the parents and the community around this area to identify and where this location is that I'm about to describe. Okay, now I believe the family lived in Southwest 9th Street. So it could either be the bottom row, which is part of the blue, or in the red zone that you see there. Okay, now again, I don't know the exact address of this family, but based on the image I received about this perpetrator, I would believe that the family lives at the bottom row, so in the blue zone, and the perpetrator actually lived in the red zone. I believe the perpetrator was right close to them and was there all along. Okay, so just getting back to that message, I don't believe that person on the top left there at 1102 Red Wing is the location, or even the person involved with this crime. And I did see some odd comments about her, but regardless, I'm not interested in her, and I don't believe that she is the perpetrator here. Now, the second message that I received was after receiving the word or the message, they digging or searching in the wrong house. Immediately after that, I received another message saying, and just on its own, 3 houses down. I'll repeat that, 3 houses down. So again, if I knew where the family lived exactly, I would be able to pinpoint this house completely. But I believe the house we're looking for, where Michael was abducted in, was in that red zone that we see there. Okay, now the image that I received of the perpetrator in proximity to the home looks something like this. This is a very crude, basic drawing. Now the blue houses on the bottom would indicate the blue zone, and the red zone. Now I believe it would have been either the day after, so in other words on July 28 or July 29, the perpetrator would have stepped outside his house, and I see it as a male figure, and we'll get into that male figure a little bit in a bit, because I do see a lot of dark energy around his head area. I would believe that either he was obviously under pressure because he could be caught, he's just committed a horrendous crime, but I believe there could have been some underlying or known mental health issues with this person as well. Okay, now the drawing that I've created here is very basic. So obviously the little stick man there represents the perpetrator, and I believe when he came out of his home and went to his car, he looked to his right across the road. So he was looking across the road to his right at where Michael actually lived, or where Brandy and the family actually lived. So I believe the perpetrator was within reach of the family home. And I believe when he was looking down the road, he was just looking at the house, knowing that's the family that have just lost their kid. So I'm not saying go on a major witch hunt. I will give you some additional clues as to who this person is. Now you'll see they're very white garage doors. Now, whether they're garage doors or an add-on or some kind of smaller outhouse or little garage or some kind of shed, it would stand out as very white. It would just seem, even though, let's say that the houses on the red zone all had white garages, okay, let's say for argument's sake. However, the perpetrator's white garage doors or white little building would stand out because it seemed always to be very, very bright white. It just stands out that the white is very bright white. Now, another piece of information that I received, and it's for everyone who knows this area or knows the people that actually live in the red zone. I believe this person would have left the area either shortly after or within, would have definitely left the area by now, okay, would have moved. So that would also be another clue as to, have there been different people living in that area, in that red zone, and who has left in the past, well, from the time that Vaughan disappeared, so shortly thereafter to current, who left that red zone and who's not there anymore, would help in identifying who this perpetrator is. So in this case, I believe it was obviously an opportunist crime. It was an opportunity, perhaps saw Michael walking around, but it was definitely an opportunist crime. And the outcome of the day that he disappeared is a 3, which is ironic or a direct impact on Michael, because he was a life path 3, and the outcome of that day, which was July 27, so the 27 is a 2 plus 7 is a 9, and the July is a 7, gives you the 16-7, so that's a 7. Now that 16-7 is important, and that 16 tells me 1, so that 1 is Michael, and the 6 is the dirty old man. Okay, so the 1 is Michael and the 6 is a dirty old man. Now, I'm not saying he's old, but it's that mentality, dirty old man, likes young boys, that kind of thing. And the year being a 5 gives us the outcome of a 12-3. And that 1 again is Michael, and the 2 is the capture of Michael, with the outcome 3. So that has a direct impact on Michael being a life path 3, and the day that he disappeared was an outcome 3. So there was definitely, there was definitely like a capture, an abduction type thing, and that 3 speaks about abuse, control, having control over someone. It can be a very negative number. Again, like I've mentioned in previous videos, we all have the option, good or bad. Very simple, good or bad. Each number has the good side and the bad side. And of course, with this outcome 3, unfortunately, is turned obviously bad, impacted the good 3, which is Michael. And so the outcome would have impacted, of course, Michael directly. And as we know, Michael has been missing since that day. Now, if I go forward to the July 28, now this would have been overnight into this day. So from the evening of July 27 to the next day would have been a very bad day. So the outcome of the July 28 is a 13-4. Which unfortunately does indicate death and endings, or endings and beginnings. And I believe this perpetrator would have not kept Michael around, and definitely would have wanted to get rid of Michael before this person was captured, and I'm sorry to say. Now, if I go forward to the next day, just to make sure, and that would have been July 29, which is a 11-2 and a 7. So there's the injustice in the 7 and the Michael and connection, and the 5 is all about deception. So I believe this guy, if it wasn't the July 28th, he would have definitely left that house on July 29th to dispose of Michael, sorry to say. But I believe Michael would have passed away anytime between the late evening of July 27 into the early morning of July 28. The best identification is to identify those rows of houses, and the message received obviously 3 houses down. So definitely that person lived in the red zone and was very close to where Michael lived. And I try to see if this perpetrator had a family, living under false pretenses, living with a family, but abducted Michael. And I do believe this person would have been divorced. And he could have even recently moved in that area. So recent could be, we say 1-2 years. If you live in a community, if you've only been there a year, you'll always identify, you've only been here for a year. It's not like you've been there for years. So I definitely feel that this male person was divorced. And, obviously the question is, well, where can we find Michael? In this case, I believe the perpetrator would identify where Michael was. So again, let's not go on a witch hunt, but that's what I pick up in terms of who it was and where it took place. So literally across the road from the family. Yeah, I just wish the family well, and I know not having Michael around must be really tearing this family apart. But I would just, as a message to the family, you guys are strong enough to deal with this, to go through with this, and support and love each other, and support your children that you have as well. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comments and suggestions below. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay alert.